Agent of the Imperium by Mark Millar, a traveller novel. This is a book review. The TLDR, this is a good book. The author, Mark Millar, is the daddy of the Traveller role-playing game. He wrote it and oversaw the creation of the game's universe for decades. This book is Mark's first novel, and he's made a good job of it. I picked up this book because I'm a fan of the Traveller game, and was intrigued to see how the author of the game would present his own story universe. As a writer myself, I was reading the first few chapters, and enjoying the framework Mark had chosen for this book. It came across as a collection of short stories, and I thought that was clever for a new author. Short stories are easier to complete and to edit than entire novels. But I was wrong. This is not a series of short stories. He wasn't taking what I was thinking of as the easy route to completing a novel-length work. So I'd better explain what I mean by the framework so you understand what I'm getting at. The agent of the title is a man who gives up his life in order to have his personality and his memories written onto a wafer. This man is chosen because he can get things done, can make the hard decisions, and usually chooses the right option. The wafer, which is his personality and his memories, is duplicated and distributed across the fleets of the Imperium. This can be activated whenever a situation comes up that needs his skills. The wafer is applied to a volunteer who has their personality overwritten by the personality on the wafer. This overwriting only lasts for a couple of weeks before the volunteer's own personality comes back, but this period is usually long enough to get the emergency dealt with. So, this book opens with a series of seemingly disconnected waking-ups of the agent in a volunteer body. That's where I got the wrong idea that this was a series of short stories. In fact, the stories are interconnected. But, as the book progresses, the pace changes from a series of staccato episodes to a longer, more consistent story, a story that hooked me. When the agent is woken up, there's an emergency that warrants his personal attention. It's these emergencies that I really enjoyed. In each case, it brought the background of the Imperium to life, explaining the terms that I knew from the role-playing game in terms of the novel's story. For example, for decades I've been familiar with the idea that worlds in the Imperium might be marked as red worlds, that they're protected or they're dangerous. In this novel, we explore multiple reasons why a world might be red and off-limits, and a few of them surprise me, but in a good way. The agent's wafers are spread around the galaxy, but when ships carrying the wafers meet, they resync the personalities, so the new memories from one wafer are shared across to the other. Hence, with each waking, the history and memories of our protagonist are growing, and his personality is growing with them. He's continuing to learn. And he starts a few projects of his own as he goes. As he doesn't age, he's just a software after all, he's able to start a few personal projects that span decades, and they can be left running while he sleeps as a simple wafer. And it's through these additional plans of his own that the stories all come together to make a decent, solid novel story. I can say that any sci-fi fan could like this book. There's no expectation of lore knowledge on the part of the reader needed to enjoy it. But it is a real extra delight to those who happen to know the Traveller game. For instance, the planetary UPP codes are used and the starship classifications are used, and these are all going to be that extra bit of nerd crack to Traveller players and fans. All this without mystifying your just general sci-fi fan. I did have one disappointment with the book, and it wasn't the story. I was watching the page count on my reader, and reached the end of the novel with quite a few pages left to read. These turned out to be background material that explained the lore, like an appendix. For instance, a detailed breakdown of that planetary UPP code, and the trade categories and ships, etc. There's plenty here for the sci-fi nerd to enjoy, but as I've personally been immersed in the lore for decades, much of this appendix was wasted on me. Now that said, I really enjoyed my time with this book. It grabbed me, and I can recommend it to all science fiction fans. I got this book via the Kindle store, but I see that it is available as a PDF and ebook via Drive-Thru RPG. so I've put a link to that in the description below. And now, a couple of extracts. Aboard AF Akamur, above Core 1424, Kuskalu, UPP B652AEE-B. High population, poor. Ukamur's displaced captain had not been happy, but the service is not about making people happy. Now Lieutenant Shuginsa's journey, commanding one of the fleet's routine couriers, covered 97 parsecs in just about 58 weeks. A week in jump, a week in system refueling, a week in jump, another week in system refueling. There was an element of tourism, seeing new systems and strange worlds. Shuginsa had instructed the astrogator to include Ilesh, a home world of the Surat, on their itinerary if it did not affect total travel time. Several weeks out, it had become apparent that the travel controls in the aftermath of the Ilesh revolt would make a casual visit ill-advised. Shuginsa was disappointed, but philosophical. Perhaps another time. Now the ship was almost to its destination. Aboard BKF Kobakun, above Dean 2126, Arcanum, UPP B434866-5. I stood on the bridge of the flagship of the Deneb fleet. Elements had been patrolling the system since the first reports, and now, 6 weeks later, the fleet strike squadron was present in force. I had been activated earlier today. The briefer, a professor of planetology, sounded scared as he spoke. Maybe it was the threat level. Maybe he thought I just killed people randomly. We were in orbit above Arcanum, a poor world with a lot of people crowded into cities and towns within a few 100 kilometres of its coastlines. The interiors of its 6 continents were impenetrable forest. The planet had no known indigenes, just humans. We could see the problem from here. As the world rotated below us, a silver dome 1,000 kilometres across rose to near world orbit. Arcanum looked out of balance, like it should wobble as it turned. A few fast communication satellites had already bumped into the dome and smashed into it. It was a stasis globe. The shiny surface was the clue. It reflected all incoming energy. The interior was frozen in a moment of time some 6 weeks ago. We've met people who can make stasis globes. They wouldn't sell us their machines, and we found we couldn't take them. Or steal them. I'm sure somebody must have tried. The problem with stasis is that we can't turn it off. Its extinction date is inextricably set when it's created. If a specific globe is set to end in 74 years, nothing we know of, will turn it off any sooner.